The ice tunnels of Europa were always quiet, but today they seemed different. Tom Reed felt it in his bones as he walked through the dim maintenance corridors of Mining Station 7, his boots making soft crunching sounds on the frozen floor. Something was off about the power readings on his tablet, showing energy spikes where there should be none. Tom had spent 5 years working these tunnels, keeping the abandoned mining station's basic systems running. It wasn't an exciting job, but it paid well enough, and he enjoyed the solitude. The station had been shut down decades ago, when the ice mining operation became unprofitable, but Earth Command kept a skeleton crew to maintain the basic systems. Today, that crew consisted of just Tom. He stopped and tapped his tablet, frowning at the strange readings. The energy signature was unlike anything he'd seen before, a faint pulse that seemed to come from deep within the ice. According to his maps, there should be nothing but solid ice in that direction, yet the readings were clear as day. "Control, this is Reed." He spoke into his comm unit. "I'm picking up some weird energy readings in Section 12B, going to check it out." "Copy that, Reed," came the bored voice of the controller back on the surface. "Just don't fall into any crevices. Paperwork's a pain." Tom smiled and adjusted his thermal suit. The station's old heating systems kept the main tunnels above freezing, but only barely. He followed the readings, moving deeper into the lesser-used parts of the complex. The lighting here was minimal, his headlamp casting long shadows on the crystalline walls. After 20 minutes of walking, he reached a dead end. The tunnel terminated in a solid wall of ice, its surface smoothed by years of partial melting and refreezing. But according to his tablet, the energy signature was coming from somewhere beyond it. Tom ran his gloved hand over the ice wall, noting its unusual texture. Something about it didn't look natural. He pulled out his thermal scanner and swept it across the surface. The results made him blink in surprise. There was a huge cavity behind the ice, and it was maintaining a steady temperature several degrees warmer than its surroundings. "Control, I think I've found something," he reported. "There's a hidden chamber behind this ice wall. Request permission to use thermal tools for investigation." There was a longer pause than usual before Control responded. "Proceed with caution, Reed. We're logging this officially." Tom pulled out his thermal lance, a tool normally used for clearing ice blockages in the station's pipes. He began carefully cutting through the ice wall, creating a hole large enough to pass through. It took nearly an hour of careful work before he finally broke through. Warm air rushed out of the opening, carrying a metallic smell that seemed completely out of place in the ice tunnels. Tom widened the hole and shone his light through. What he saw made him step back in shock. The cavity beyond was enormous, stretching far beyond the reach of his light. But it wasn't the size that caught his attention. It was what the cavity contained. There, suspended in a cradle of ice-covered support structures, was a ship. Not just any ship, but a warship of incredible size, its dark hull still gleaming despite years of ice accumulation. "Control," Tom's voice was barely a whisper. "You need to see this." He stepped through the opening, his boots crunching on scattered ice crystals. The ship towered above him, its hull marked with the faded insignia of the United Earth Space Force. As his light played across its surface, he could make out its name, UES Thunderchild. Tom's breath caught in his throat. Everyone knew that name from the history books. The Thunderchild was the most advanced warship ever built by humanity, disappeared during the darkest days of the Dominion War. Its loss had been a turning point, leading to years of bitter defensive fighting before humanity finally fought the Dominion to a standstill. And now here it was, hidden in the ice of Europa all along. As he approached the ship, his tablet's readings went crazy. The energy signature was coming from the vessel itself. It was still powered. After all these years, Tom reached out to touch the hull. And the moment his hand made contact, lights began to flicker to life along the ship's length. A soft hum filled the chamber, and a voice spoke from nowhere and everywhere. "Human presence detected. Initiating revival protocols." Tom stumbled back as more systems began powering up. Sheets of ice fell from the hull as minimal power restored the ship's thermal regulation. The voice spoke again, this time clearer and more focused. "I am Thunder, the artificial intelligence of the UES Thunderchild. Please identify yourself." "I'm Tom Reed, maintenance worker, Europa Station 7. Tom managed to reply, his voice shaky. "Greetings, Tom Reed. Current date confirmation required." Tom provided the date, and there was a moment of silence. 27 years, 4 months, and 12 days since Protocol Lazarus was initiated, Thunder announced. Query: Has the Dominion broken the armistice? "No," Tom replied. "The peace is held." But he thought about the reports he'd seen on the news feeds. There are rumors they're rebuilding their fleet in secret. More lights came on inside the ship, revealing a cargo bay door slowly opening. "Then we have awakened at the correct time," Thunder said. Admiral Walker's calculations were accurate. "Admiral Walker?" Tom asked, stepping closer to the open door. "The ship's last commander." "Correct." When it became clear that the Dominion would overrun this sector, Admiral Walker enacted Protocol Lazarus. Instead of letting the Thunderchild fall into enemy hands, he hid the ship here, preserved with all its advanced technology intact. The crew was evacuated through a series of misdirections, making it appear we had been destroyed in battle. Tom walked into the cargo bay, where emergency lighting cast everything in a soft blue glow. Despite nearly 3 decades in hiding, the ship's interior was pristine, preserved by sophisticated environmental systems. The Admiral believed that the Dominion would never truly honor the peace, Thunder continued. He predicted they would rebuild in secret, preparing for another attempt to conquer Earth and its colonies. The Thunderchild was preserved for that moment, hidden with technologies far beyond what humanity possessed even today. "And now you're waking up," Tom said, understanding dawning. "Because that moment is coming." "Correct. But I require assistance. My systems are operational, but many need maintenance after the long dormancy. Will you help, Tom Reed?" Tom looked around the massive cargo bay, then back toward the hole in the ice where his ordinary life waited. But there was nothing ordinary about this moment. He was standing in a piece of history, one that might be vital to humanity's future. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'll help. But we should contact Earth Command. They need to know about this." "Agreed," Thunder replied. "But carefully. If the Dominion has spies in the Earth government, we must ensure this information reaches only the right people. The element of surprise is one of our greatest advantages." Tom nodded, already pulling out his comm unit. Then he paused, looking up at the nearest camera he could spot. "Thunder, why did you choose to trust me so quickly?" The eye was silent for a moment before responding. "Admiral Walker programmed me to recognize not just rank or credentials, but character. You investigated an anomaly with care and precision. You showed respect for proper procedure. And most importantly, your first thought was not of personal gain, but of doing what's right for humanity. These are the qualities we need." Tom felt the weight of those words as he began composing his message to Control. As he worked, more systems came online throughout the massive ship, lights flickering to life along its length. The Thunderchild was awakening, ready to emerge from its long hiding place when humanity needed it most. He just hoped they could get it ready in time. 3 days after Tom's discovery, the hidden chamber beneath Europa's ice was buzzing with activity. Earth Command had responded to his carefully worded message within hours, sending a small team of their most trusted personnel. They arrived quietly, in unmarked ships that looked like routine supply runners. Tom stood beside Dr. Robert Miller, the lead engineer, as they reviewed the Thunderchild's technical specifications on a large holographic display. The more they learned about the ship, the more amazing it seemed. "This shouldn't be possible," Miller muttered, adjusting his glasses as he studied the weapon systems. "The quantum cascade cannon alone is centuries ahead of anything we have now. Are you sure these specs are accurate?" Thunder: "All specifications are correct, Dr. Miller. The AI responded. The Thunderchild was an experimental platform incorporating technologies that were deemed too advanced to risk falling into Dominion hands. Tom watched as more schematics floated past. The ship's hull was lined with adaptive armor that could change its properties in response to different types of attacks. The shield system used principles of quantum entanglement that even their best scientists were still struggling to understand. "Admiral Walker's logs are even more interesting," said Kate Wilson, the military historian who'd arrived with the team. She sat at a nearby console, deep in the ship's archives. He didn't just hide the ship on a whim. This was part of a larger plan. She pulled up a video log, and Admiral Walker's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but determined, his uniform bearing the marks of recent battle. Final log entry. Walker's recording began. "The Dominion thinks they have us beaten. They believe that by taking our outer colonies, they can force Earth to surrender. What they don't understand is that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our weapons or our ships. It's in our ability to plan ahead, to sacrifice the present for the future." The Admiral's eyes seemed to stare right through time as he continued. "The Thunderchild is more than just a warship. She represents everything we've learned about advanced technology, everything we've discovered about the universe's deeper mysteries. I won't let her fall into Dominion hands. Instead, we'll preserve her, hide her where they'll never look, right under their noses in our own solar system." Tom felt a chill as Walker described exactly how events would unfold. The Admiral had predicted that the Dominion would accept a peace treaty once the war reached a stalemate, but would never truly give up their dreams of conquest. He had calculated that it would take them approximately 25 to 30 years to rebuild their forces in secret. And when they return, Walker's recording concluded, "Thinking they know all of humanity's capabilities, the Thunderchild will be our ace in the hole. Thunder, if you're playing this log, then that time has come. Serve humanity well." The recording ended, leaving the chamber in silence. It was broken by an alert from one of the engineering teams working on the ship's sensor systems. "Dr. Miller," called out one of the technicians, "we've got the long-range sensors online. And you need to see this." They rushed to the sensor station, where a complex display showed activity at the edge of the solar system. Multiple ships were moving in patterns that suggested military maneuvers, their energy signatures matching known Dominion designs. "They're being careful," Thunder observed, "staying just beyond the range of Earth's normal detection systems. But my sensors were designed to see through their stealth technology." Miller swore under his breath. "They're positioning for an attack, aren't they?" "Correct," Thunder replied. "Based on their movement patterns, I calculate a 93.7% probability that this is the prelude to a major offensive. They are likely waiting for their full fleet to assemble before striking." Kate looked up from another console. "I found more of Walker's files. He left detailed intelligence about Dominion military doctrine, gathered during the war. Their favorite tactic was to amass overwhelming force, then strike at multiple targets simultaneously. Their goal was always to prevent defenders from concentrating their forces effectively." Tom watched the sensor display, seeing more ships gradually appearing at the edges of the solar system. "How long do we have?" "At their current rate of buildup," Thunder calculated, "approximately 2 weeks before they reach optimal attack strength. However, we cannot assume they will wait that long if they detect our activities here." Miller turned to the engineering teams. "You heard that, people. We got less than 2 weeks to get this ship ready for combat. Focus on essential systems first: propulsion, weapons, and shields." The chamber burst into renewed activity. Engineers and technicians moved with fresh urgency, understanding now that they weren't just restoring a historical relic, they were preparing humanity's best defense against an imminent threat. Tom found himself working alongside Miller's team, his maintenance experience proving valuable as they brought systems online. The work was challenging but fascinating. Every part of the Thunderchild was elegant in its design, systems flowing together with an efficiency that made modern ships look primitive in comparison. "Tom," Thunder called out during a brief break, "I need you to see something in the command center." He made his way to the bridge, where Thunder displayed a special set of controls. Admiral Walker left specific instructions about crew requirements. While the ship can operate with a full complement, it was designed to function with a minimal crew if necessary. The AI integration systems allow me to handle most functions, but I need human operators for key decision-making roles. How many people are we talking about? Minimum of 5. A command officer, weapons specialist, engineer, navigation expert, and systems coordinator. Thunder paused. Based on your performance these past days and your initial discovery of the ship, I would like you to consider taking the systems coordinator position. Tom stared at the controls, feeling overwhelmed. Me? But I'm just a maintenance worker. These other people, they're trained military officers and engineers. You possess qualities that cannot be trained, Thunder replied. An intuitive understanding of complex systems, adaptability, and most importantly, the right instincts under pressure. Admiral Walker believed that in crisis situations, character matters more than credentials. Before Tom could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Miller's voice came over the comm. We've got movement. Multiple Dominion ships just activated their drives. They're heading into the solar system. Thunder's voice was calm but urgent. It appears our timeline has been accelerated. They must have detected energy signatures from our restoration work. Tom, I need your decision now. Will you help crew this ship? Tom looked at the sensor display showing the approaching Dominion fleet, then at the advanced systems surrounding him. He thought of all the history in this ship, of Admiral Walker's foresight, and of what would happen if Earth was caught unprepared for this attack. Yes, he said firmly. I'm in. Excellent, Thunder replied. Now let's show the Dominion what humanity has been hiding all these years. The next 12 hours on the Thunderchild were a blur of activity. With Dominion ships approaching faster than expected, the restoration teams worked frantically to prepare the vessel for launch. The ice chamber that had hidden the ship for so long now buzzed with urgent voices and the sounds of equipment being tested. Tom worked at his new station on the bridge, learning the systems coordinator controls with Thunder's guidance. Dr. Miller had taken the engineering position, while Kate Wilson surprised everyone by revealing she was also a qualified navigation officer. Commander Jack Porter, who had arrived with the initial Earth Command team, took the captain's chair, and weapons control went to Lieutenant Lisa Brown, a quiet woman with combat experience from border skirmishes. Main reactor at 80% capacity, Miller reported from his station. It'll have to do. We don't have time for a full power-up sequence. Weapon systems online, Brown added. Running final checks on the quantum cascade cannon. Tom monitored the overall systems integration, watching as hundreds of status indicators shifted from red to yellow to green. The ship was waking up fully now, its power thrumming through the deck plates. Through his neural link to the ship's systems, established through Thunder's advanced interface, he could almost feel the vessel's eagerness to move again. Multiple Dominion ships have crossed Neptune's orbit, Cave announced from navigation. Their trajectory suggests they're planning to split into 3 attack groups. Commander Porter leaned forward in his chair. Thunder, what's the status of the ice above us? Can we break through without compromising the ship's systems? The ice shell is approximately 300 meters thick, Thunder replied. I have calculated an optimal escape vector using minimal weapons discharge. However, the energy signature will be impossible to hide. The Dominion will know something is happening on Europa. They already suspect something, Porter said grimly. That's why they're moving early. Better to show our hand now than let them catch us still grounded. Thunder, begin launch sequence. The ship's systems surged with power. Tom felt it through his interface, the way every part of the vessel worked in perfect harmony. The Thunderchild's advanced systems were like nothing he'd ever experienced. It wasn't just machinery, but a perfect blend of human and artificial intelligence working together. Warning, Thunder announced. Detecting multiple small objects entering Europa orbit, likely Dominion scout drones. They're trying to find us, Brown said, her hands moving across her weapons console. "Permission to activate point defense systems." Porter nodded. "Granted, but hold fire unless they get too close." "Thunder, time to launch." Launch sequence at 70%. Preparing primary plasma cutters for ice penetration. All crew, brace for atmospheric displacement. Tom secured himself in his station as the ship's massive plasma cutters activated. Above them, the ice began to melt and vaporize in a controlled pattern. The chamber filled with steam and mist as centuries-old ice turned to vapor in seconds. Through his neural link, Tom felt the ship's structure flex slightly as it prepared to move. The Thunderchild's adaptive hull was already adjusting its molecular structure, preparing for the stress of breaking through the ice and entering space. "Dominion drones entering visual range," Kate reported. "They'll have a clear view of our emergence." "Let them watch," Porter said with a grim smile. "Thunder, time to show them what they're dealing with." The final layers of ice above them began to crack. The Thunderchild's anti-gravity systems engage, lifting the massive warship with barely a sound. Steam and ice fragments swirled around them as they rose through the melted tunnel. "Multiple enemy signatures changing course," Kate called out. "They're converging on our position." "As expected," Thunder commented. "Activating quantum shield array." "Tom, please initiate full systems integration for combat protocols." Tom's fingers flew across his console, feeling more confident with each passing moment. The neural interface made the complex systems almost intuitive to control. He could sense the shield generators powering up, the weapons systems charging, every part of the ship ready for action. The Thunderchild broke through the final layer of Europa's ice with a thunderous crack. Chunks of frozen water scattered in zero gravity as the massive warship emerged into space for the first time in 27 years. Its dark hull gleamed in the distant sunlight, looking as powerful and deadly as the day it was hidden. "Multiple Dominion vessels changing course to intercept," Kate reported, detecting energy signatures consistent with weapon charging. "They're not taking any chances," Porter observed. "Lieutenant Brown, ready all defensive systems, but do not fire unless fired upon." "Thunder, show them what we can do." The Thunderchild's engines ignited, but not with the normal blue flame of standard drives. Instead, rings of purple-white energy pulsed along the ship's length as its quantum drive engaged. The vessel moved with an acceleration that should have crushed its crew, but the advanced inertial dampeners made it feel like a gentle push. "Quantum drive performing at optimal levels," Thunder reported. "Detecting multiple targeting locks from Dominion vessels. They appear confused by our energy signature." Tom smiled as he monitored the enemy scan attempts through his system displays. The Thunderchild's technology was so advanced that their sensors probably couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. The quantum drive alone operated on principles that wouldn't be discovered for another century if history had taken its normal course. "Sir," Brown called from weapons, "I have solutions for disabling shots on the 3 nearest vessels. We could take them out before they know what hit them." Porter shook his head. "Not yet. Thunder, broadcast on all frequencies, standard encoding. Let's let them know who they're dealing with." The AI's voice echoed with satisfaction as it transmitted. "This is the UES Thunderchild to all Dominion vessels. You are in violation of Earth space. Your presence has been noted, and your actions are being monitored. Withdraw immediately." For several tense moments, there was no response. The Dominion ships held their positions, weapons charged but not firing. Tom could almost imagine their confusion and fear as they faced a legendary vessel that was supposed to have been destroyed decades ago. Finally, a response came. A harsh voice spoke in slightly accented English. "This is impossible. The Thunderchild was destroyed in the Battle of Proxima. You cannot be." "We were never destroyed," Thunder interrupted. "We were waiting. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal from Earth space. After that, we will demonstrate exactly why the Thunderchild was considered the most dangerous ship ever built by human hands." The Dominion ships hung in space for several more seconds. Then, one by one, their energy signatures changed as they powered down weapons and began to turn. "They're retreating," Kate announced, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. All ships showing engine signatures consistent with withdrawal. "Don't celebrate yet," Porter warned. "This was just a scouting force. They'll be back, and in greater numbers. But now, they know we're here, and that changes everything." He turned to his crew. "Well done, everyone. Especially you, Tom. How are you handling the neural interface?" Tom looked at his displays, feeling the ship systems as if they were extensions of his own body. "It's incredible, sir. It's like the ship wants to help us succeed." "That is because I do," Thunder said. "We were built to defend humanity. Now, after 27 years of waiting, we can finally fulfill that purpose again." The Thunderchild moved through space with graceful power, its quantum drive leaving ripples in the fabric of space-time itself. They had won this first encounter without firing a shot, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. The real battle was still to come. 3 days after emerging from Europa, the Thunderchild patrolled the outer edges of the solar system. Earth Command had been both shocked and relieved by their appearance, quickly incorporating the legendary vessel into their defense plans. The ship's crew had settled into their roles, though they all knew the peace wouldn't last long. Tom stood at his systems coordination station, monitoring the quantum sensor grid. The neural interface had become almost second nature now, letting him process vast amounts of data without overwhelming his mind. Through it, he felt Thunder's constant presence, the AI working alongside him to maintain the ship's complex systems. "Energy spike detected," Thunder announced suddenly. Multiple quantum wake signatures consistent with Dominion battle fleet formation. The bridge crew snapped to attention. Commander Porter leaned forward in his chair. "Numbers. I count 37 capital ships," Kate reported from navigation. "Plus smaller support vessels. They're not trying to hide anymore. This is a full battle fleet." Porter nodded grimly. They had time to report back to their command and gather their forces. This is their real response to our appearance. Thunder, tactical analysis. The AI displayed a complex holographic map in the center of the bridge. Red dots representing Dominion ships appeared in battle formation, advancing steadily toward the solar system. Their formation suggests a multi-pronged assault plan, Thunder explained. The fleet will likely split into 3 groups, one to engage us directly, one to attack Earth's orbital defenses, and one to strike at the colonial settlements on Mars and the Moon. "Classic Dominion tactics," Brown commented from weapons. "They still think they're facing the same level of technology as before." Tom studied the tactical display through his neural link, seeing patterns in the enemy formation that the normal sensors might miss. "Sir, look at their energy signatures. The ships in the center formation. They're different somehow." Thunder confirmed his observation. "Correct. The central fleet appears to be equipped with upgraded weapons and shields. They've been preparing for this conflict, developing countermeasures against known Earth technology. But not against ours," Porter said with a slight smile. "Dr. Miller, what's the status of our special projects?" Miller looked up from his engineering station, where he'd been studying the Thunderchild's more experimental systems. "The quantum cascade cannon is fully operational, and I think I'd finally figured out how the phase shift torpedoes work. This ship has some nasty surprises for them." "We'll need them all," Porter replied. "The Dominion fleet will be in range in 2 hours. Kate, alert Earth Command and get me a secure channel to Admiral West." While Kate sent the messages, Tom felt something strange through his neural interface, a subtle shift in Thunder's processing patterns. "Thunder, what is it?" "I am accessing sealed memory files," the AI replied. "Admiral Walker left specific tactical protocols for this scenario. Uploading combat solutions now." New data flowed through Tom's neural link, detailed battle plans that Walker had prepared decades ago based on his deep understanding of Dominion tactics. The Admiral had predicted exactly how they would respond to the Thunderchild's reappearance, and had planned accordingly. "These are brilliant," Porter said as he reviewed the plans. "Walker didn't just hide this ship. He turned our 27 years of apparent weakness into a strategic advantage. The Dominion thinks they know all our capabilities, all our tactics. They have no idea what's coming." "Sir," Kate called out. "Admiral West is responding. Earth Command is mobilizing everything they have, but they'll need at least 3 hours to get their forces in position. We'll have to buy them that time," Porter decided. "Thunder, begin implementing Walker's Alpha Strike protocol. Tom, I need you to coordinate with ship systems for maximum efficiency. This is going to push everything to the limit." Tom's fingers flew across his console as he helped Thunder prepare the ship's advanced systems. The quantum drive hummed with power as they moved to their designated position. Through the neural interface, he could feel the weapons charging, the shields adapting, every part of the massive vessel preparing for battle. "Dominion fleet accelerating," Kate reported. "They'll be in weapons range in 20 minutes. They're eager to prove themselves," Porter observed. "Brown, target the lead vessels with the quantum cascade cannon. Let's show them exactly what they're dealing with." The massive weapon powered up, its energy signature unlike anything in known space. The Dominion fleet continued their advance, clearly confident in their superior numbers. "Enemy ships launching fighters," Kate announced. "Hundreds of them. Implementing point defense grid," Thunder responded calmly. "Tom, please activate the temporal distortion field." Tom engaged the experimental system, watching in awe as space itself seemed to ripple around the Thunderchild. The enemy fighters suddenly found themselves flying through regions where time itself flowed differently, their formation breaking apart in confusion. "Initial fighter wave disrupted," Brown reported with satisfaction. "Main fleet entering optimal firing range in 3 minutes." Porter stood from his command chair. "Send one final warning. After that, we show them everything this ship can do." Thunder broadcasted on all frequencies. "Dominion fleet, this is your final warning. The Thunderchild you face today is not the same vessel you remember. Withdraw now, or face the consequences of 27 years of human technological advancement." The only response was a barrage of enemy fire. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked toward the Thunderchild, but they never reached their target. The quantum shields caught the attacks and simply absorbed them, converting their energy to power the ship's own systems. "Return fire," Porter commanded. "Thunder, execute Walker Attack Pattern 7. The Thunderchild's weapons came alive. The quantum cascade cannon fired, its beams splitting into multiple streams that twisted through space in impossible ways, bypassing enemy shields completely. 3 Dominion capital ships simply ceased to exist, their matter converted to energy in an instant. "Phase shift torpedoes launching," Brown announced. Tom watched through his neural link as the experimental weapons phased in and out of normal space, appearing inside enemy ships before detonating. The Dominion fleet's neat formation began to break apart as they faced weapons they couldn't understand, let alone defend against. "Enemy fleet attempting to regroup," Kate reported. "They're trying to concentrate their fire." "Exactly as Admiral Walker predicted," Thunder noted. "Executing temporal pincer movement." The Thunderchild's quantum drive engaged in a way that defied conventional physics. The ship seemed to exist in multiple points in space simultaneously, catching the enemy fleet in a crossfire with itself. Through his neural interface, Tom felt the strain on the ship's systems as they pushed the advanced technology to its limits. But he also felt Thunder's confidence, the AI's certainty that they could handle it. "Earth Defense Fleet will be in position in 20 minutes, Kate announced. "The Dominion's rear formations are starting to break off their attack runs." "They're beginning to understand," Porter said quietly. "The Thunderchild isn't just a warship. It's humanity's leap into the next era of space warfare. Thunder, prepare for final attack run. Let's make sure they never forget this day." The legendary warship moved through space like a ghost, its quantum drive leaving ripples in reality itself. The battle wasn't over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The Dominion had come expecting to face the same humanity they'd fought before. Instead, they found themselves confronting the future itself, in the form of a ship that had waited 27 years to show its true power. The Dominion fleet had scattered, but not retreated. Their remaining ships regrouped at the edge of the solar system, waiting for something. The Thunderchild's crew knew this wasn't over. The enemy was too proud, too committed to their plans to give up after one defeat. Tom monitored the quantum sensors from his station, the neural interface, letting him process the vast amounts of data flowing through the ship's systems. The battle had pushed both crew and ship to their limits, but they'd proved what the Thunderchild could do. Earth's defense fleet had arrived and taken up defensive positions around the major colonies, ready for whatever came next. New quantum wake signatures detected, Thunder announced suddenly. Massive energy readings at the edge of sensor range. The bridge crew watched as new markers appeared on their tactical display. Kate's voice was tense as she reported from navigation. 5 supercarriers just dropped out of quantum space. Each one is 3 times the size of a normal Dominion capital ship. Reinforcements, Porter said grimly. They must have had them waiting just outside the system. Thunder, analysis. The AI's response was immediate. The supercarriers matched designs from Admiral Walker's sealed files. They were theoretical weapons platforms the Dominion was developing during the war, ships built around single massive weapons that could crack planets. Through his neural link, Tom felt a subtle change in Thunder's processing patterns. You're accessing more of Walker's sealed protocols, aren't you? Correct, Thunder replied. The Admiral foresaw this possibility. The Dominion would never accept defeat without committing their ultimate weapons, accessing final protocol now. New data flooded through Tom's neural interface, detailed specifications of the supercarrier's weaknesses, and plans for a desperate but brilliant counter-strategy. He understood immediately why this information had been sealed until now. Sir, he called to Porter, you need to see this. The commander studied the tactical data, his expression growing more serious. This is our only shot, isn't it, Thunder? Affirmative. The supercarrier's main weapons will be capable of destroying Earth's orbital defenses in a single salvo. We must prevent that at any cost. Porter nodded and opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral West, we're implementing Walker's final protocol. Request permission to proceed. There was a moment of tense silence before West's reply came. Permission granted, Commander. Give them hell. All hands, battle stations, Porter ordered. Dr. Miller, begin power transfer to the quantum core. Lieutenant Brown, charge all weapons. Kate, plot an intercept course directly through their formation. Tom felt the ship's systems surging as power was redirected. Through his neural interface, he helped Thunder balance the enormous energies flowing through the vessel's quantum circuits. What they were about to attempt would push the ship's technology beyond anything it was designed for. Enemy fleet is powering up their main weapons, Kate reported. Energy readings are off the scale. They're preparing to fire on Earth, Brown added. 30 seconds until they're fully charged. Porter's voice was steady as he gave the order. Execute final protocol. Thunder, show them what humanity's greatest ship can really do. The Thunderchild's quantum drive engaged with a power that made their previous battles seem like warm-ups. The ship accelerated at impossible speeds, its advanced technology letting it cross the vast distance to the enemy fleet in seconds. Quantum cascade cannon charging beyond safety limits, Miller reported, his hands flying across his engineering console. The containment fields are barely holding. Maintain course, Porter commanded. Tom, status of the temporal matrix. Tom checked the readings flowing through his neural interface. Matrix is stable, sir. Ready to execute on your mark. The supercarriers loomed ahead of them, their massive weapons glowing with gathered energy. The remaining Dominion ships moved to intercept, but they were too slow. The Thunderchild was about to show them its final surprise. Now, Porter ordered. Thunder activated systems that had been hidden even from the ship's main computers until this moment. The quantum drive didn't just move the ship through space. It bent reality itself. The Thunderchild seemed to exist in 5 places at once, each version of the ship targeting a different supercarrier. Temporal division stable, Thunder reported. Quantum cascade cannon at maximum power. Warning, containment fields will fail in 20 seconds. That's all we need, Porter said. Fire everything. The quantum cascade cannon fired, its beams splitting into 5 impossible streams of energy. Each version of the Thunderchild unleashed the full power of its weapons directly into the supercarrier's quantum cores. The enemy ship's shields, designed to stop normal weapons, meant nothing against attacks that broke the laws of physics themselves. Through his neural interface, Tom felt the strain on the ship's systems. Warning indicators flashed everywhere as they pushed the advanced technology far beyond its limits. But he also felt Thunder's iron determination, the AI's unwavering focus on their mission. The supercarrier's weapons flickered and died as their power cores were disrupted. Massive explosions began to chain through their massive hulls. The surrounding Dominion ships broke formation, trying desperately to escape the destruction of their flagship vessels. Multiple quantum core breaches detected, Kate called out. The supercarriers are breaking apart. Containment fields failing, Miller warned. We need to end the temporal division now. Thunder, execute convergence, Porter ordered. Get us clear of the blast radius. The 5 versions of the Thunderchild snapped back into a single ship just as the supercarriers exploded. The quantum drive engaged one final time, carrying them away from the massive detonation that lit up space like a new sun. When the light faded, the remains of the Dominion fleet were in full retreat. Their ultimate weapons had been destroyed, their invasion plans shattered. The few surviving ships vanished into quantum space, fleeing back to their own territory. Damage report, Porter called out as they stabilized. Multiple systems damaged but repairable, Miller reported. The quantum drive will need a complete overhaul, but we're still flying. Earth Command reports all Dominion forces have left the system, Kate added. We did it. We actually did it. Tom leaned back in his chair, feeling the ship's systems gradually returning to normal through his neural interface. Thunder, how are you holding up? All critical functions are stable, the eye replied. Admiral Walker would be proud. The Thunderchild has fulfilled its purpose. We have defended humanity and shown the Dominion the true cost of underestimating Earth's capabilities. Porter stood from his command chair, looking at each member of his crew. Well done, everyone. Especially you, Tom. Not bad for a maintenance worker who stumbled onto a hidden warship. Tom smiled, remembering how ordinary his life had been just days ago. I just helped wake her up, sir. Thunder and the Admiral's planning did the rest. No, Thunder corrected. It was all of us together. The ship, the crew, the technology. We proved what humanity can achieve when we combine our strengths. The Dominion will think twice before threatening Earth again. Through the bridge windows, they could see Earth's defense fleet approaching, ships moving to escort the legendary vessel that had changed the course of history twice, once by disappearing, and again by returning when humanity needed it most. The Thunderchild moved through space with quiet power, its quantum drive humming softly despite the strain it had endured. The ship had waited 27 years in the ice of Europa, preserved by one generation to save another. Now it had not only prevented a war but shown humanity's enemies that Earth would always have one more surprise waiting for those who threatened its peace. Tom felt Thunder's satisfaction through the neural interface as they turned toward home. The AI was already beginning repair sequences, preparing the ship for whatever challenges might come next. The Thunderchild was back, and this time it wasn't going anywhere. Its legend would only grow stronger, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength was not just its technology, but its ability to plan ahead, to sacrifice, and to rise to any challenge with determination and courage.
The emergency alarm blared through the small farming community of Haven's Rest. It was a sound no one had heard in over 15 years. Red lights flashed in every home, every shop, and every public space on the quiet agricultural world. Jack Hayes was in his garden when he heard it. He stood up slowly, his knees cracking with the movement. Soil fell from his weathered hands as he looked to the sky. He had known this day might come. A small part of him had been waiting for it. Inside his modest home, a message flashed on his old communications unit. The screen had been dark for so long he had almost forgotten it existed. The message was brief. Krenthak attacking New Montana colony. All veterans requested. Critical situation. Transport arriving in 1 hour. Jack stared at the screen for several long seconds. Then, without hesitation, he walked to his bedroom closet. Behind his everyday clothes and farming gear was a hidden panel. He placed his palm against it, and after a moment, it slid open. Inside was a simple metal case, sealed and untouched for years. 5 miles away, Mary Winters lowered her mug of tea when she heard the alarm. She had been teaching her granddaughter how to play chess. The little girl looked confused, but Mary just smiled gently. "I need to go away for a little while," she said. She kissed the girl's forehead and walked calmly to her study. Like Jack, she had a hidden compartment, this one beneath a loose floorboard under her desk. The case she pulled out was longer and thinner than Jack's. Across the river, in the community school, George Franklin was explaining crop rotation to a group of students when the alarm sounded. The children jumped in surprise, but George remained perfectly still, as if he had been expecting the sound. He dismissed the class with unusual authority, his normally gentle voice suddenly firm and clear. "School is canceled for today. Go straight. I home." The children, sensing the change in their teacher, obeyed without question. In the colony's engineering workshop, Linda Powell set down her welding tool with deliberate care. She had been helping build a new irrigation system. When the alarm sounded, the other engineers looked confused and worried. Linda did not. She simply removed her work gloves, nodded to her colleagues, and walked out without a word. All 4 veterans converged on the colony's small spaceport an hour later. They carried their sealed cases and small bags with personal items. They had not changed into uniforms. They wore simple civilian clothes. Yet anyone who saw them walking toward the landing pad felt a strange chill. Something about the way they moved was different from the other colonists. They did not hurry, but their steps were somehow more direct, more certain. They did not speak much as they waited for the transport. They had known each other for decades. Words had long ago become mostly unnecessary between them. "New Montana?" George finally said, breaking the silence. "Mining colony, rich in rare minerals, strategic location." Mary nodded. 3,000 miles of rough terrain. Multiple settlement clusters. Linda tapped her fingers against her case. Poor defensive infrastructure. They never expected to be a target. Jack said nothing. He just watched the sky. The transport that arrived was small and unmarked. It landed silently, its engines barely disturbing the air. The pilot who emerged was young, wearing the uniform of the Colonial Defense Force. His eyes widened slightly when he saw the 4 older civilians waiting for him. "You're the veterans?" he asked, his voice betraying his doubt. Jack finally spoke. "Yes, we're ready to leave." The pilot hesitated. "I was told I would be picking up elite combat specialists." Mary smiled faintly. "You were told correctly. Let's not waste time." As they boarded the transport, the pilot couldn't help but stare. Jack's hair was gray, his face lined with age. Mary walked with a slight limp. George had the soft hands of a teacher. Linda looked like someone's kind grandmother. Once they were seated, the pilot engaged the launch sequence and opened a briefing file on the main screen. "New Montana has been under siege for 3 days, he explained, showing them images of the Krenthak fleet in orbit around the colony. "Our regular forces have been pushed back to the central settlement. The mining outposts have already fallen." The veterans studied the images in silence. The Krenthak ships were massive, their design alien and threatening. The aliens have better weapons, better shields, and better tactical systems than anything we've developed, the pilot continued. They've conquered 6 colonies in the past year alone. No one has been able to stop them. Jack exchanged glances with the others. We've faced worse odds, he said quietly. The pilot looked skeptical, but didn't argue. As the transport left the atmosphere, he activated the faster-than-light drive. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines as they accelerated. It will take us 18 hours to reach New Montana, the pilot said. You should rest while you can. The veterans nodded but made no move toward the sleeping quarters. Instead, they opened their cases for the first time in years. From his case, Jack removed what looked like ordinary gloves. Only someone with specialized knowledge would notice the nearly invisible circuitry woven into the fabric. Mary's case contained an old rifle that seemed almost primitive compared to modern weapons. She began checking its components with practiced efficiency. George pulled out a small device that resembled a simple calculator. When he activated it, however, complex holographic displays appeared above it, showing battlefield simulations. Linda's case held tools that looked more suited for construction than combat. Her fingers moved over them with familiar affection. The pilot watched in confusion. That's your equipment? Those things look ancient. They're exactly what we need, Linda replied without looking up. As the ship hurtled through space, Jack gazed out the viewport. He thought about the peaceful life he had built, the garden he had tended that morning, the neighbors who knew him only as a quiet farmer. He thought about how that life would seem like a dream in the coming days. He thought about New Montana and the people there, facing an enemy they couldn't hope to defeat. He remembered what it was like to fight against impossible odds, to do things that shouldn't be possible. He flexed his fingers inside the special gloves. They still fit perfectly. We should discuss strategy, George said, activating his tactical display. The holographic images showed the layout of New Montana's main settlement. The 4 veterans gathered around the display. To an observer, they might have looked like ordinary older people examining a map. Nothing about them suggested they were anything special. But in 18 hours, the Krenthak would learn differently. In 18 hours, everything would change. The transport ship emerged from faster-than-light travel with a gentle shudder. Through the viewport, New Montana came into view. It was a rocky world with patches of engineered forests surrounding the human settlements. In orbit above the planet, the massive Krenthak ships loomed like dark predators. We'll have to use the emergency approach, the pilot said, his voice tense. The main spaceport is under alien control. Jack nodded. Take us in through the southern mountain range. Low and quiet. The pilot looked surprised. How did you know about that route? It's not on any official charts. We know many things, Mary said simply. The transport dipped into the planet's atmosphere. The pilot guided it skillfully between jagged mountain peaks, keeping close to the terrain to avoid Krenthak scanners. After 20 minutes of careful navigation, they approached a small landing pad hidden in a narrow valley. Secondary port for emergency supplies, George explained. Every mining colony has one. When they landed, a woman in a colonial defense force uniform was waiting for them. Commander Susan Miller looked exhausted. Dark circles ringed her eyes and her uniform was stained with dirt and what might have been blood. You're the Special Forces team they sent? She asked, her voice flat with disappointment as the 4 older civilians walked down the ramp. Jack extended his hand. Jack Hayes. This is Mary Winters, George Franklin, and Linda Powell. We're the response team. Miller shook his hand weakly. I requested elite combat specialists. We're fighting for our lives here. We understand the situation, Jack replied calmly. Take us to your command center. Miller hesitated, then seemed to give up arguing. Follow me. We don't have much time. The Krenthak are preparing for another push. They drove through a series of underground tunnels in a small electric vehicle. The tunnels had been mining shafts once, now converted to emergency transport routes. Occasionally, they passed groups of frightened civilians huddled together in side chambers. We've evacuated as many people as we could from the outer settlements, Miller explained. 3,000 civilians in spaces meant for a few hundred. Food and water won't last long. None of the veterans commented. They watched everything with alert eyes, taking in details that others might miss. The command center was a large cave that had been equipped with military computer systems and communications gear. Maps and tactical displays covered the walls. About 20 Colonial Defense Force officers worked at various stations, their faces grim. Miller called for attention. "These people have been sent to assist us," she announced, gesturing to the 4 veterans. The officers looked up, and Jack could see the same disappointment in their eyes that he had seen in Miller's. "What's our status?" George asked, moving directly to the main tactical display. A young officer stepped forward. "The Krenthak hold the spaceport and the northern mining complex. They've established 3 forward bases here, here, and here." He pointed to locations on the map. "We've got defensive positions around the central settlement, but our weapons barely dent their armor. They have some kind of energy shield technology." Linda moved closer to examine the display. "What's your power infrastructure like?" The officer looked confused. "We have the main generator in the central settlement and backup systems in these locations." "Why?" "I'll need access to your engineering systems," Linda said, "and a team of people who know the colony's electrical grid." Miller frowned. "We're fighting for survival and you want to look at our power grid?" "Yes," Linda replied simply. Mary had moved to a different display that showed the terrain around the colony. "I need the highest elevation point with a clear view of the northern approach," she said. Another officer pointed to a spot on the map. "There's an old observation post here, but it's of no tactical value. The Krenthak warriors have personal shields. Sniper positions are useless." Mary nodded. "I'll need transportation there." Jack turned to Miller. "When is the next Krenthak attack expected?" "Our intel suggests they'll move at dawn," Miller replied. "About 6 hours from now. They're bringing in their heavy assault platforms." "Good," Jack said. "That gives us time." Miller's frustration was visible. "Time for what? You haven't even told us your plan or what kind of specialist you are." George looked up from the tactical display. "We're what you asked for, Commander. Veterans." "Veterans of what?" Miller demanded. "You look like you should be in retirement homes, not on a battlefield." For the first time, a faint smile crossed Jack's face. "We fought in wars your history books don't mention, Commander. Now we need to prepare." The 4 veterans split up, each focused on their tasks. Linda gathered a team of engineers and disappeared into the colony's maintenance tunnels. Mary collected a small pack of supplies and left with a guide for the observation post. George remained in the command center, studying the defensive positions and making small adjustments to the placement of troops. Jack walked alone through the tunnels, observing the frightened civilians and the young, nervous soldiers. He stopped occasionally to speak quietly with squad leaders, giving them simple instructions that seemed odd but specific. Commander Miller followed him, her frustration growing. "My people are dying," she said finally. "I need to know what you're planning." Jack stopped and turned to her. "Your regular tactics won't work against the Krenthak. They've seen them before. They expect them. And you have something better?" Miller asked skeptically. "We have something different," Jack replied. "Sometimes that's enough." In the engineering section, Linda was making modifications to the colony's power distribution system. The local engineers watched in confusion as she rerouted critical systems in ways that violated standard safety protocols. "This will create power surges in sections 3 through 7, one engineer protested. "Yes, it will," Linda agreed, continuing her work. At the observation post, Mary unpacked her old rifle. The Colonial Defense Force soldier who had guided her watched curiously. "That weapon is ancient," he commented. "Our latest rifles can't penetrate." "Krenthak armor. What makes you think that one can?" Mary didn't answer. She simply began making careful adjustments to her scope, her weathered hands steady and precise. In the command center, George had created a new defensive strategy that left several approaches to the colony seemingly undefended. "This is suicide," one of the officers argued. "You're creating gaps in our line." "They're not gaps," George replied calmly. "They're invitations." As dawn approached, Jack returned to the command center. He found Miller staring at the tactical display, her expression torn between hope and despair. "Your people are in position," she said, "but I still don't understand how 4 aging veterans are going to change anything against an enemy that has overwhelmed every defense we've thrown at them." Jack stood beside her, looking at the display showing the Krenthak forces massing for their attack. "Commander," he said quietly, "have you ever seen a storm front hit a mountain range? How everything seems calm until the moment of impact, and then everything changes in seconds." Miller looked at him, confusion in her eyes. "Watch," Jack said, his voice steady as the first alarms began to sound. "You're about to see exactly that." The first light of dawn broke over the mountains of New Montana. In the alien ships above, the Krenthak prepared for what they expected would be a simple victory. They had faced human defenses before. Their algorithms had calculated every possible human response. They knew exactly what to expect. Inside the main Krenthak vessel, war leader Krastul studied the tactical display. His forces had easily taken the outer settlements. Now they would crush the main colony and secure the valuable mining resources. The humans always fought the same way, with the same tactics. Predictable. Weak. "Begin the attack," Krastul ordered. Standard formation. In the colony's command center, alarms sounded as sensors detected movement from the Krenthak positions. Commander Miller and her officers watched the tactical screens with grim expressions. "They're coming in force," one officer reported. "At least 2,000 warriors with support platforms." Miller glanced at George, who stood calmly by the main display. "Your defensive positions are in place," she said, doubt clear in her voice. "I hope you know what you're doing." George nodded. "Watch the eastern ridge," he said simply. The Krenthak warriors moved in perfect formation across the rocky terrain. Their armor gleamed in the morning light, energy shields creating a faint blue glow around each soldier. Behind them floated the heavy weapons platforms, massive discs that carried enough firepower to level the colony's defenses. Jack stood at a small outpost, watching the approaching aliens through old-fashioned binoculars. Next to him, a squad of 6 young Colonial Defense Force soldiers waited nervously. "Remember what I told you," Jack said. "Wait for my signal. Not before. Not after." The soldiers nodded, though they didn't understand why this old man's timing mattered so much. In the maintenance tunnels beneath the colony, Linda had finished her modifications to the power grid. She had positioned small teams of engineers at key junction points with simple instructions. "When I give the word, flip these switches in exact sequence," she told them. "The timing must be perfect." On the observation post high above the battlefield, Mary lay perfectly still behind her rifle. Through her scope, she watched the approaching alien forces. She counted silently, her breathing slow and controlled. The Krenthak reached the first defensive line. They met exactly what they expected, a standard Colonial Defense Force barrier with predictable weapon emplacements. Their forward units engaged, confident in their superior shields and firepower. But then something unexpected happened. Mary fired her first shot from the observation post. The ancient rifle made a sound unlike the modern weapons. The bullet, and the actual physical projectile, not an energy weapon, traveled along a path that should have been impossible according to standard ballistics. It struck a Krenthak officer at the exact point where the energy shield generator connected to the armor. The alien fell instantly. The Krenthak command structure registered confusion. Their sensors hadn't detected a threat from that position. Before they could recalibrate, Mary fired 5 more shots in rapid succession. 5 more command officers fell. In the command center, Miller stared at the display in disbelief. "How is she doing that? Their shields should stop any projectile." George didn't answer. He was focused on the eastern section of the battlefield. "Now," he said into his communicator. On the eastern ridge, Jack gave a hand signal to his small squad. They fired their weapons not at the Krenthak warriors, but at specific points on the rocky ground in front of them. The shots kicked up dust in a pattern that seemed random. But as the dust cloud formed, something strange happened to the Krenthak. Energy shields in that sector. The shields flickered and weakened. Linda's voice came through on the command channel. Ready, she said. In the tunnels, Linda nodded to her engineers. They flipped the switches in sequence. Power surged through the colony's grid in a pattern that created a specific electromagnetic pulse. It was a pulse that, by all modern understanding, should have been harmless. But the Krenthak weapons platforms passing over that section of the battlefield suddenly lost altitude. Their control systems failed and they crashed to the ground. In the Krenthak command ship, alarms sounded. War leader Krastul stared at his displays in disbelief. "What is happening?" he demanded. "These are not standard human tactics." His subordinates had no answers. Their battle computers were trying to analyze the unexpected developments, but the humans were using methods that weren't in their database. On the battlefield, the Krenthak formation began to break apart. They had been driving forward in a precise pattern, but now gaps appeared in their lines, and into those gaps, the Colonial Defense Force troops moved exactly as George had positioned them. Miller watched the tactical display with growing amazement. "They're falling back," she whispered. "I've never seen the Krenthak retreat." George nodded. "They're confused. Their algorithms can't process what's happening." A Colonial Defense Force officer rushed into the command center. "Sir, the aliens are sending in their elite guard. They're heading straight for the command bunker." Miller paled. "The elite guard has never been defeated in ground combat." George touched his communicator. "Jack, they're sending the elite guard to the command bunker." "Understood," Jack's calm voice replied. The Krenthak elite guard moved with frightening speed toward the colony's central area. These warriors were larger than the others, their armor more advanced. They carried weapons that could cut through standard defenses like paper. Jack stood alone in the open area in front of the command bunker. He had removed his jacket and now wore only a simple shirt and pants. The special gloves still covered his hands. The Colonial Defense Force soldiers nearby looked at him in alarm. "Sir, you need to take cover," one shouted. "Those are elites coming." Jack didn't move. He stood relaxed, almost casual, as the 12 massive alien warriors approached. The lead Krenthak elite raised its weapon, targeting Jack. Then it paused, its sensory apparatus scanning the lone human. According to its threat assessment, this aging human posed no danger. Yet something about the man's stance triggered an alert in its combat systems. The alien fired. The energy bolt should have vaporized Jack instantly, but Jack wasn't there anymore. He had moved with impossible speed, stepping aside at the last moment, and then he was moving toward the aliens. In the command center, everyone stared at the video feed in shock. Jack Hayes, a man who appeared to be in his 60s, moved like nothing they had ever seen. He flowed between the massive aliens like water, his hands striking with precision at points on their armor that shouldn't have been vulnerable. 2 elite warriors fell in the first 5 seconds. 3 more in the next 10. The remaining aliens tried to form a defensive circle, but Jack was always where they didn't expect him to be. Miller turned to George, her eyes wide. "What is he?" George watched the screen calmly. "What we all are. The result of a program they don't teach you about in military history." Throughout the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Mary's impossible shots continued to eliminate key Krenthak commanders. Linda's power surges disabled alien technology that should have been immune to such simple tactics. The defensive positions George had established caught the Krenthak in crossfires they couldn't have predicted. And Jack, facing the cream of the alien military, moved like a ghost among them, his gloved hands finding weaknesses that no analysis had ever detected. In the Krenthak command ship, War Leader Krastul ordered a full retreat for the first time in his long career. "These are not normal humans," he stated. "They do not fight according to any known pattern. We must withdraw and analyze this new threat." The Krenthak forces began to pull back, leaving behind more dead and disabled warriors than they had lost in all previous human encounters combined. In the colony's command center, stunned silence gave way to cautious celebration. But Commander Miller wasn't celebrating. She was watching George Franklin with new eyes. "Who are you people?" she asked, quietly. "Really?" George looked at her steadily. "Just veterans, Commander. From a war everyone tried to forget." The Krenthak retreat created a strange quiet over the battlefield. The Colonial Defense Force soldiers stared in disbelief at the alien warriors moving back toward their ships. No one had ever seen the Krenthak abandon a planned assault. Jack walked back to the command bunker, his movements now slow and deliberate. The soldiers who had witnessed his fight with the elite guard stepped aside as he passed, their expressions a mixture of awe and fear. He looked tired now, his face lined with exhaustion, but otherwise showed no signs of having just defeated 12 of the most dangerous warriors in known space. In the command center, Miller was questioning George with growing intensity. "I need answers," she insisted. "Those combat techniques aren't possible. The way Hayes moved, the shots Winters made, Powell's power disruptions, none of that should work against Krenthak technology." George sighed. The Krenthak base their tactics on analyzing patterns. They expect humans to fight according to established military doctrine. We don't. "That's not an explanation," Miller pressed. The door opened, and Jack entered. He flexed, his fingers inside the special gloves wincing slightly. "They're regrouping," he said without preamble. "We have maybe 2 hours before they try again." Linda's voice came through on the comm. "Jack, I need to see you, Maintenance Section 3. Jack nodded to George and left without another word to Miller. As he walked through the tunnels, Colonial, citizens and soldiers alike stepped back to let him pass. Word had spread quickly about what had happened on the battlefield. In Maintenance Section 3, Linda was examining a captured Krenthak weapon. She looked up as Jack entered. "Their technology has evolved," she said. "The power signatures are more complex than the last time we faced them." Jack raised an eyebrow. "The last time?" "Proxima Centauri, 2138. The incident that was officially recorded as a mining accident." Linda adjusted her glasses. "These are the same species, but their tech has advanced." Jack nodded. "Can you continue to disrupt their systems?" "For now, but they'll adapt. They always do." Linda pointed to a display showing energy readings. "The next wave will have modified shields. Mary's shots won't penetrate so easily. Then we'll need to modify our approach too," Jack said. Mary joined them a few minutes later, her ancient rifle slung over her shoulder. Her face showed none of the strain that was evident on Jack's. 17 command officers eliminated, she reported. But they're changing their command structure, becoming more decentralized. George arrived last, carrying a data pad showing the battlefield map. "They're consolidating their forces here," he said, pointing to a location north of the colony. "Pulling in all their remaining troops for one massive push." The 4 veterans looked at each other. They had worked together for so long that much of their communication happened without words. "Option 3? Linda suggested. Jack considered, then shook his head. "Too many civilians nearby." "Option 5. Mary frowned. "Option 5 requires all 4 of us in exposed positions. It's our best chance to end this quickly," Jack replied. George nodded slowly. "I'll update the tactical positions." As the veterans discussed their plans, Commander Miller approached with 2 senior officers. She had clearly been listening. "Whatever you're planning, I need to know," she demanded. "These are my people you're risking." The veterans turned to face her. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Jack nodded. "You deserve to know. But what we tell you cannot go beyond this room." Miller hesitated, then dismissed her officers. When they were alone, she crossed her arms. "I'm listening." Before the Colonial Defense Force, before the unification, George began, Earth's nations fought wars using specialized soldiers. "Super soldiers?" Miller asked, her tone skeptical. "That's a myth." "Not super," Linda corrected. "Enhanced, specific modifications, not to make us stronger or faster, but to make us unpredictable. The Krenthak aren't the first alien species humanity has encountered," Jack explained. "Just the first one officially acknowledged. 50 years ago, there were incidents, first contact situations that went badly. The problem was tactical, predictability," Mary continued. "Alien species with advanced technology could analyze human combat patterns and develop perfect countermeasures. Conventional forces always lost. So a program was created, George said. Project Anomaly. They selected soldiers with specific cognitive traits and enhanced those traits through a combination of neural modification and specialized training. Jack held up his gloved hands. These aren't weapons. They're interfaces. They link to implants that alter our perception of time and space in combat situations. Mary doesn't aim where a target is, Linda explained. She aims where probability suggests a vulnerability might appear. I don't disable technology by understanding how it works. I create disruptions that have no logical pattern for it to defend against. And Hayes? Miller asked, looking at Jack. Jack's enhancements focus on movement prediction, George said. He doesn't fight the enemy. He fights where the enemy won't expect him to be. Miller shook her head in disbelief. If this technology exists, why isn't it standard for all our forces? Because it kills us, Jack said simply. Neural degradation. The four of us are the only survivors from our group. Most didn't last 5 years after the enhancements. How long ago was that? Miller asked quietly. 30 years, Mary answered. We should have been dead 2 decades ago. We learned to manage the degradation by living quiet lives, using our abilities sparingly. Until today, Linda added. George turned back to the tactical display. The price for what we're about to do will be high. For us, personally. But it's necessary. Miller looked at each of them in turn. What exactly are you planning? The Krenthak adapt quickly, Jack explained. They're already adjusting to our individual abilities, but they've never faced all 4 of us using our enhancements, in perfect synchronization. Option 5 is a coordinated attack, George continued. All 4 of us from different positions creating a cascading series of unpredictable events that their tactical systems can't possibly analyze in real time. It will break their command structure completely, Mary said, force a full retreat. But the neural load? Linda looked at Jack with concern. Will be significant, he finished for her. We all know the risks. Miller was silent for a long moment. These enhancements, this program, it was hidden from history? The ethical implications were problematic, George said. When the Colonial Defense Force was formed, cleaner methods of space warfare were preferred. Our program was discontinued. Officially, it never existed. Jack checked the time. We have 40 minutes before they attack again. Commander, we'll need your forces positioned exactly as we specify. Miller straightened. Tell me what you need. As, the veterans outlined their plan, activity in the colony increased. Troops moved to new positions. Engineers prepared equipment. Everyone worked with new purpose, though few understood the details of what was happening. In the Krenthak command ship, War leader Krastul studied the human colony with growing frustration. His analysts had no explanation for their earlier defeat. These humans use combat methods outside all known parameters, one subordinate reported. They appear to violate basic tactical principles. They are still humans, Krastul insisted. They can be defeated. Prepare all remaining forces for a single, concentrated assault. Back in the colony, the 4 veterans made their final preparations. They stood together briefly before moving to their positions. Like old times, Mary said quietly. Let's hope we all walk away from this one, Linda replied. George squeezed Jack's shoulder. See you on the other side, brother. Jack nodded. Just remember, don't push beyond the red no matter what happens. They separated, each heading to their designated position for option 5. As Jack walked alone to his post, he felt the familiar pressure building behind his eyes. The neural implants were already warming up, preparing for what was to come. He knew the cost of what they were about to do, but he also knew the alternative. In the distance, the Krenthak forces began to move. Dawn broke over New Montana for the second time since the veterans had arrived. The air was still, tense with anticipation. In the distance, the Krenthak forces had formed a massive wedge formation. All their remaining troops and equipment were positioned for one overwhelming assault. In the command center, Commander Miller watched the tactical display. The colony's defenders were in position according to the veterans' instructions, though many of the placements made little sense to her conventional military training. "They're moving," an officer reported. Miller touched her communicator. "All units, hold position until ordered. Do not engage without direct command." She took a deep breath. "Veteran team, they're coming." Jack stood alone on a rocky outcropping, with a clear view of the approaching alien force. He wore only light clothing, his special gloves, and a small communication device in his ear. His eyes were closed as he focused his mind, preparing for what was to come. "Acknowledged," he replied, quietly. Option 5 commencing. Half a mile away, Mary lay in position with her rifle. Unlike before, she wasn't aiming at the Krenthak. Instead, her rifle was pointed at a series of small metal reflectors that George had positioned across the battlefield. In position, she confirmed. Linda was in the colony's main power station, her hands poised over a complex array of switches and controls that she had modified overnight. "Ready," she said. George stood in the command center beside Miller. He held his small tactical device, now connected to the colony's main systems. "All calculations complete," he reported. "Ready on my mark." The Krenthak advanced with confidence. Their defeat the previous day had been analyzed, adjustments made. Their shields now rotated frequencies randomly to prevent the type of shots that Mary had made. Their command structure had been decentralized to prevent easy targeting. Their heavy weapons platforms were shielded against electromagnetic interference. War leader Krastul watched from his command ship, certain of victory. These humans had surprised them once, but the Krenthak always adapted. 3 minutes to optimal firing range, his tactical officer reported. On the battlefield, George looked at the display one final time. "Mark," he said. What happened next occurred so quickly that later, when the Colonial Defense Force officers reviewed the recordings, they had to slow the footage to understand the sequence of events. Linda activated her modified power system. A pulse of energy shot through the colony's grid, but unlike before, it didn't target the Krenthak shields directly. Instead, it created a specific pattern of electromagnetic disturbance in the air above the battlefield. At exactly that moment, Mary fired her rifle. The bullet hit the first reflector, which sent it ricocheting to the second, then the third, creating a precise pattern of impacts. Each impact created a small sonic disturbance. These sonic disturbances interacted with the electromagnetic pattern Linda had created, producing a complex interference wave that rippled across the battlefield in a mathematical pattern that no standard tactical system could have predicted. As this wave passed over the Krenthak front line, Jack opened his eyes. His neural implants activated fully, and time seemed to slow around him. He saw not where the aliens were, but where the interference pattern created momentary vulnerabilities in their formation. Jack moved. To the Colonial Defense Force soldiers watching, he seemed to disappear and reappear at different points across the battlefield. He struck with precise movements, each motion calculated by George's tactical modeling to create maximum disruption. In the command center, George monitored the pattern as it unfolded. "Phase 2, he ordered. "All units fire according to pre-programmed sequence." The colony's defenders opened fire, not aiming directly at the Krenthak, but at specific points around them. The combined effect created another layer of the pattern. The Krenthak formation began to break apart. Their carefully planned advance dissolved into confusion. Individual warriors fired randomly, unable to track the threats that seemed to come from impossible angles. War leader Krastul stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The neat formations of his forces had transformed into a chaotic mess in less than 30 seconds. "What is happening?" he demanded. His tactical officer shook his head. "Unknown, war leader. Our systems cannot analyze the pattern. It appears random, but achieves precise effects." On the battlefield, the 4 veterans' combined abilities created a cascading effect that grew more powerful with each second. Mary's impossible shots, Linda's energy manipulations, George's tactical calculations, and Jack's reality-defying movements formed a symphony of unpredictable actions that the Krenthak's logical, pattern-seeking minds could not comprehend. Jack moved through the alien forces like a ghost, appearing exactly where their defenses were weakest at exactly the right moment. Each movement was perfectly timed to coincide with Mary's shots and Linda's energy pulses. But the strain was becoming visible. Blood trickled from Jack's nose as his neural implants overheated. Mary's hands trembled as she made increasingly impossible calculations for her shots. Linda's face was pale as she pushed her enhancements to maintain the complex energy pattern. In the command center, George gripped the edge of the console, his eyes unfocused as his mind processed tactical data beyond human capacity. After 3 minutes of coordinated assault, the Krenthak began a full retreat. Not just from the battlefield, but from the planet itself. Their ships launched from the surface, abandoning equipment and even some of their wounded. In the command ship, war leader Krazatul made a decision that would change the course of the war. All forces, full retreat from this system, he ordered. These humans do not fight according to any recognizable pattern. They are anomalies. Until we understand, we cannot defeat them. On the battlefield, Jack fell to his knees, exhausted. Mary's rifle slipped from her fingers. Linda staggered against the control panel. George collapsed into a chair, blood seeping from his ears. Commander Miller rushed to the nearest medical team. "Get to the veterans immediately, all of them." Hours later, the 4 veterans lay in the colony's medical center, connected to life support equipment. The colony's doctor looked grim as she reported to Miller. Severe neural degradation in all 4. Their brains show patterns I've never seen before. It's as if they've burned out critical pathways. "Will they survive?" Miller asked. "I don't know. Whatever they did out there nearly killed them." Miller looked at the 4 still figures. These strange, impossible veterans had saved her colony when nothing else could have. Outside, celebrations had begun as news of the Krenthak retreat spread. Not just from New Montana, but reports were coming in of alien forces withdrawing from other human colonies as well. Something about what had happened here had frightened them on a fundamental level. 3 days later, Jack opened his eyes. The other veterans were awake too, weakened but alive. Miller sat beside Jack's bed. "You did it," she said. "The Krenthak have pulled back from all human territories. They're requesting peace talks." Jack smiled faintly. "Good. The Colonial Defense Force wants to debrief you. They're sending a ship." Mary, from her bed across the room, laughed weakly. "They want to know if there are more like us." "Are there?" Miller asked. George shook his head. "We were the last. Project Anomaly ended decades ago." Linda raised a trembling hand. "But we can still teach. Not the enhancements. Those were unethical. But the principles. Unpredictability. Fighting outside expected patterns." Jack closed his eyes. "The Krenthak aren't evil. They just don't understand humans. They expect logic, patterns. Show them that humans don't always follow patterns, and they'll respect it." Miller nodded slowly. "I'll make sure your recommendations reach the right people." A week later, a small unmarked ship departed from New Montana. Despite offers of medals, positions in the Colonial Defense Force, and substantial rewards, the 4 veterans had asked only for a quiet return to their home. As they prepared to leave, Commander Miller asked Jack one final question. "Why did you come? You knew what it might cost you." Jack looked at the other 3 veterans, his oldest friends, the only people who understood what they had been through together. "Because that's what veterans do," he answered simply. "When called, we serve." The ship disappeared into the stars, carrying the 4 old warriors back to their quiet lives. But across human space, the story spread. How 4 veteran human warriors entered a battle against an undefeated alien force, and everything changed in seconds.